because of the rise of remote work, are now choosing to live their life on the road and do homeschooling with their kids on the road. And all of those, needing to do all of those things, Wi-Fi internet connection has really become a major important factor, not only for streaming of movies and games, and obviously tailgating and camping have been synonymous for decades, but it's the professional work.
What are some of the most powerful moments of connection you've witnessed between guests?
So we have a family that's camping with us now that has a couple of kiddos that are younger, right? They're 9 years and under, and the way that they interact with some of the other kiddos that come to the property and make friends and pen pals. I mean, these kids are writing letters to each other back and forth on the road, and to be able to see just the friendships that are made along the way, and to see that we've been successful in building that type of community here.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Moments That Matter podcast. I'm your host, Jason Crepero, and in each episode, we take a deep dive into the pivotal moments that have shaped today's leaders. I've got a great one for you today. We are joined by Alex Burkett from Grayson Capital Group. Alex, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show. We've got a lot to talk about here. For those who aren't familiar with you or the work you're doing, can you give an overview?
Yeah, I'll kind of start with my current position and then kind of work back with a little bit on my background. So currently general manager here under Grayson Capital Group, which was founded in 2016 as really a real estate investment and capital raising arm, primarily based in Michigan, but we've got multifamily holdings in Florida, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, Michigan, kind of a little bit all over the place. The campground that I have the pleasure of GMing and overseeing is the first kind of play in the outdoor hospitality space for Grayson Capital. And that was really, how I got brought on board and joined Justin Richards and his team here. But this has really been my background. I started in outdoor hospitality at 16. It was my, first summer job in high school. Thought it was going to be better than working at McDonald's or some other, fast food place like all my other buddies were doing. So I was like, hey, this campground thing doesn't seem so bad. So I started at the front desk at that park, and have kind of had a chance to grow and develop since then, and obviously now made it from front desk all the way up to GM and leading what is hoping to be a growing real estate arm under the Grayson brand here. So that's about as short as I can sum it up, Jason.
Well, there's a lot there. I love the upward mobility there. I love that you kind of grew it from the bottom up. Did that all happen sequentially? Were you under, one RV park, one outdoor hospitality for that duration, or kind of jumped around?
Yeah, so I've had the pleasure of jumping around a little bit. That first property was actually a Jellystone Park franchise, which, anybody who knows kind of campground brands, that's kind of one of the three, largest plays there. So growing up, I was not a camper. I did not know anything about this. The only vacations and stays that we did were, hotels or going to the beach and that kind of thing. So this was definitely a new world for me. At that time, I had the pleasure of meeting some great people from the Jellystone corporate world, which again was definitely something I was, not accustomed to at 16, 17, 18, very new space. And they were really the ones who kind of instilled in me that, hey, you can be more than just a front desk person. There's a pathway for you here if this is something that you like. My background in I went to school for marketing and kind of have that kind of lens of seeing the world is through that customer experience, right? The getting to be at the front desk and working with people was great. Was at that Jellystone Park for a number of years, made my way up to be kind of operations manager, which at our location was directly under the GM. So oversaw a lot of different departments, a lot of the kind of guest facing things like housekeeping, F&B, retail, those kind of things. And then since then, moved around and worked with some other camping groups, got to GM parks with Spacious Skies Campgrounds, which is a 15 park portfolio collection all the way along the Eastern Seaboard. Was at
Hmm.
one of their parks in North Carolina, and then moved up to New York. So uh, you can say I've moved around a bunch from growing up in Ohio at that one park to now in Michigan with multiple stops in between. But have really been blessed to see parks from a lot of different perspectives, see how different portfolios and groups operate, and then now kind of being at this position where we have one location, but really on the ground floor of what is going to be building a portfolio of these things as we continue to be in acquisitions mode and looking for parks 2, 3, 5 and beyond.
Fantastic. And like your history, I'm looking at your LinkedIn right here. It's
Mhm.
just one after another, different camping, all outdoors. Is there something about outdoors that kind of hooked you? Or would you ever see yourself going indoors?
Never say never. I would say that. But it kind of did, everybody talks about, kind of being bit by the bug when you're in outdoor hospitality or just hospitality in general. That
Yeah.
definitely happened for me. And I would say, really one of the things that I love about the camping space is the people, not only obviously the people that I get to work for and with, but I think the customer base is just a lot different than maybe what you would traditionally find in the hotel or other hospitality space. It's really, these are families a lot of times. There's a memory making component to camping that you may not get with other asset classes or things, even multifamily hotels, that kind of thing. And to me, that's really what got me. Jellystone parks are really known for being that like highly amenitized resort type operation, lots of planned activities and things to do, and to my mom's a teacher and an educator, and I kind of grew up with that lens and background as well, and being able to just kind of see that on a kid or in a family and make those memories and be a part of that experience. Like to me, more than anything, it was that, and the amount of return guests that we get, the amount of families and kids that you get, rather than just that maybe traditional business customer that you would find on the hotel side. That to me was really what was different and why I think I've stuck with it so long. The hours are still grueling, as the GM, you're still, the buck stops here, and you've got to be able to kind of jump in and do what's necessary. But it's that sort of memory making side of things that I think has kept me in it as long as I have.
Yeah, well, and with that customer base, right, comes a bunch of other expectations and needs and desires. I had the opportunity to visit one of the Jellystone parks in Caledonia,
Oh, that's an
Wisconsin.
amazing one. That's actually funny enough, Jason, one of the original Jellystone parks. That was one of the first several.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I'm a private pilot. We flew in, my son and I. This was about a year and a half ago, and he was almost 8 at the time. Oh no, I guess he's 8 at the time. We flew into Milwaukee and we rented a Mercedes Sprinter van. And
Mm,
so we drive up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where they have the largest fly-in in the world, and it's called
wow.
yeah, it's Oshkosh. EAA has their big fly in there. They call it Air Venture, and so we fly in, and man, we camp out. There's about 600,000 people camping. It's really fun. After a couple days, I kind of see that he is losing the enthusiasm. It's a lot of walking around. You're on a campsite and stuff, but we're still having a great time. So I said, "Hey, buddy, why don't we split?" We were going to be there for 2 more days, so we went down to Milwaukee, caught a Brewers game, and then I was looking on the map for like places where I could actually park this thing, right? So I found that campsite, and I saw that they had an aqua park. Have you seen this thing?
Oh yeah, it's massive, and a lot of like at that place especially, that's all man-made, right?
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
dug that out, and they've got the Wibbit inflatable course and all of that kind of stuff. It's wild. These are Jellystones
Yeah.
often are kind of like the little Disney amusement parks of camping, right? And I'm
It
sure you
was.
and your son felt like that.
We could not believe what we saw. I mean, I saw the photos and I was really excited and I got him pretty pumped from the jumping pillow to all of the other amenities. I think they had, rock climbing and stuff, but man, that aqua park was as advertised. The one thing was, I was 40 at the time. For those who don't know, it's like, very high, a lot of falling down, a lot of movements you're not used to doing. So my son was totally fine. But after about 2 hours on this aqua park, just slipping, falling, jumping off, man, the next morning I felt like someone beat me with a bat. It was brutal. Really, really great time though, and that one in particular, like you said, it was all about memories. So my son and I, we talk about that to this day. It was a great time. What do you feel? Do you feel any sense of obligation to you're really kind of facilitating these memories for these families? How do you go about that task?
It's a really interesting question, and I think the RV park and campground space in particular has kind of morphed over time. What might have been a traditional definition of camping is, Jason, maybe you were growing up or from, years past of just kind of sitting around the campfire and kind of using camping as sort of the lowest end of the vacation experience, right? You could probably camp for really cheap, and there really wasn't this, as you said, obligation to have the big aqua park and the swimming pools and all the resort style amenities. I think that is largely starting to change, and I think a lot of parks are having to adapt to that. Ours being, no different. We put in a jump pad, and we have a resort style pool for that reason, because I think so often people maybe do want to try and take that Disney camping, Disney experience, or go to an amusement park, but don't necessarily have, the cash for it. And I think that campgrounds have become the space in which that's being done. And we've hired more on the rec side. And again, this is what my background is in, and trying to really have themed activities and events for folks every hour, and just
Oh wow.
have enough stuff for kids and families to do. Right? We always say, right, like boredom is the thing that's going to kill us. If and the reason why somebody would choose a different type of stay versus, again, our experience, if it's fun and the kids are enjoying it, mom or dad's going to hand over their wallet again and again and again. And it's really, I think it's now a part of the buy box and the thesis for a lot of great operators that I see in the space, is that you kind of have to have a lot of these amenities and to provide at least some level of experience in order to remain competitive. It's just not good enough to be in maybe a great location. I would say, if you're around a national park or close to some other attraction, you probably could get away with not having to have as much, because you're just the stopover for, a great spot. But if you're really trying to build a destination park or someplace that's going to, like how you did, Jason, where you're researching, and just the reputation alone kind of brings your park to the front, because there's just so much to do. I think that's what you have to do, just in this marketing environment, in this, kind of changing expectations of what campers and the new kind of wave of RVers are coming to expect. That's just, where it's at today.
Yeah, well, on the note of, being a destination itself, like you're coming to this place, you probably will not leave, versus this is your jump off point. So it looks like, are situated between, like, halfway between Grand Rapids and Lansing.
Correct.
Is there something nearby that people are going to check out, or are you the destination itself?
So we really have tried to become and are becoming the destination itself, right? A lot of times people may be coming in for different events during the year. We have one of the largest free state fairs in the area that happens for a week over the summer, right? That's a really busy time during that stretch. But largely, if there's not an event like that going on, we've had to become that destination. Although we're situated right off of a major state highway, Michigan 66, there's not much, right? Although we're close to Walmart and other, nearby amenities, it's not like we are situated by an amusement park or something for people to do. And I think that, the only way that parks like ours can survive, particularly, we're not the largest if you look at the grand scheme of things, right? In the RV park and campgrounds world, 100 sites is really kind of the minimum of which, today you can, if in order to attract investment, to try and like operate at a decent size, unless of course you're having more of like a glamping type operation where you've got just, 20 really unique, cool structures for people to stay in. If you're going on the RV side, you really need a lot of units and a lot of stuff for people to do. And that's really how we see it in order to kind of pencil out and make the math make sense. So, I think becoming the destination is making a lot more sense, and we see a lot of parks beginning to adapt to that and add new amenities to try and combat that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I see that you have cabins, right? And
Mhm.
then you also have RV sites. When you go to forecast something like this, does the early demand for cabins sort of kind of allude to what the demand for the RV sites will be, or how do you is one usually dictate the other? Once we're out of RV sites, the cabins fill up.
This is interesting as, folks in the industry, you kind of talk about the way in which somebody might move throughout the life cycle as an RVer, right? You might take somebody who is used to tent camping, or maybe their family had a pop-up that they had growing up, kind of the lowest cost entry point into the RV space.
Mhm.
And we try and think about how are they moving throughout that journey, right? Are you either trading up your RV, going to, let's say, a travel trailer or a larger fifth wheel or a class A, right? A motorhome, something you can drive. And then how are you maybe making it over to the higher end of the market, being a deluxe cabin or a really cool yurt or glamping dome, something like that. It's been a little muddy as far as like what is that crossover been for us. RVers aren't necessarily lodging customers and vice versa. But what we've seen is that there are a lot of families and family units that make up both sides of that, right? So where you might have grandma and grandpa that might need a cabin stay because they don't have an RV or there's mobility issues, and we provide nice large restroom and living facilities. And then you've got the family that's going to come and stay in the pop-up right next door. We see that as a real asset to be able to, it's still a very similar camping experience. That resort like amenities are still included in both stays, but we're able to now bring two different segments into that camping space. So as lodging has gotten more popular and more people have added it to their campgrounds, and we see that as um, a lot more of what used to be a differentiator is not, right. Everybody kind of has some form of lodging now today. So you've really got to find ways to stand out as the park, and that's where I think again the amenities, what you're doing. We added a bunch of concrete pads to our RV sites. We've, looked at the higher end of the lodging market to try and capture, what's going to be a really nice upgraded stay, not kind of that older, rustic cabin in the woods, kind of, dumpy experience. We've really tried to say we want to carve out a lane in the market that's more on the higher end upscale part of that journey. We think it gives us better pricing power. It's something that again is a differentiator for us that you can market towards and kind of carve that away as your segment. And I think more and more parks are beginning to find like what is your lane in the market. You don't have to be luxury necessarily. You could be the family market or that really great outdoor rustic stay if you're, let's say, on a great creek or lake, or you're close to a state park. There are lots of ways to occupy that, but I think just kind of picking a lane is more important.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple follow-up questions here.
Sure.
So, I'll ask the first one. Given your location, are you finding that it's people from Michigan that are looking for an outdoor adventure? They go there, or are people coming in from all around the country to do this?
There's a little bit of both, but I would say primarily because we're right between those two great metros of Lansing and Grand Rapids, we are pulling from that as our primary customer base. I would say we're probably right about 60% of our folks are coming just from those two cities and the kind of circle radius in between.
Okay.
Probably another 20% or broader Michigan, from all the way up to from the UP to down closer to Indiana and Ohio. And then probably that remaining 20 to 25% are folks from everywhere else, right? Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, right? A lot of times it's those bordering Midwest states, but particularly coming out of a time when gas prices were so high and so many people are kind of again treating their campground stays as like how you would maybe drive a couple of hours to go to an amusement park or to go to a great attraction. I think a lot of people see that similarly with the campground. Most people are willing to drive about 2 to 3 hours to get to your spot. And then from there, you've got to deliver on all those resort style amenities.
Yeah. Well, when people stay with you, I'm sure it varies, and you have customers of all durations. But
Mhm.
what do you think a typical in the summertime? Are people staying all summer, just a weekend, for a week, a couple weeks? What do you find your average customer stays?
We're right at about 2.5 days is our kind of average time that somebody's with us. Now we've got folks that are staying the whole season, right? And we call that either, long-term or seasonal camping on the campground side, where
Wow.
somebody's agreed to pay us to be here from middle of April when it's still a little chilly, all the way through October. So those full kind of right at 180, 200 days. We've got other people that families in particular are really coming to stay the weekend, right? They're checking in on Friday night and leaving on Sunday afternoon. So for us, there is a little bit of that difference between that person who's kind of treating their camping stay as that second vacation home, if you will, right? You're paying to essentially be able to come every weekend or stay throughout the duration. And we've got a lot of people that do the journey from Michigan down to Florida for 6 months and then come back to us and just kind of flip flop to keep the warm weather throughout the year. And then again, other people that are local to Grand Rapids area that drive their 45 minutes in, spend time for the weekend, and then go back home for the week and back to work. So that's again one of the areas I just love is the differences and the uniqueness of who our customers are and what they really do. It's just we have a really, really unique guest in the camping world, and it's just unlike any other kind of asset class I've seen.
Yeah. Now, if I were you, one thing I'd be I'd be thinking about is the difference between someone that has their own RV, no matter how old or new, pop outs or, manual, older style, and their skill or acumen at being able to like park and maintenance and run this thing versus someone who kind of rented it for this occasion. Do you find yourself or your team needing to help out some people from sometimes? Hey, I just rented this thing. I don't really know how to operate it.
Absolutely. It happens all the time. In particular, at our park, all of our sites are what's called back-in sites, meaning it sounds just like it is, just like you would back in a car to your parking space. You've got to back in your unit into the site itself. And that, when you are pulling something new, is a real challenge, right? Especially not to hit your utility hookups. And, it's if somebody's never towed gosh, even a trailer, right? Let alone your RV. We constantly have to find that. Similar with again your sewer hookup, right? Whoever thought that you would have to worry about what's going to happen with your waste when you flush the toilet, right? Those kind of conversations and things are becoming more common. And I think because we saw so much of a boom in buying activity in kind of COVID times, there are a lot of people that got started in RVing that never really got the proper education or the introduction to how to do it. And we see that as a real challenge. Thankfully, there are companies like at our park that we partnered with, like RV Share and others, where you can actually rent the unit from somebody. Somebody will come in and actually set it all up for you. And all you have to do is just come in, unlock the door, and you're into the unit. So it's a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water, see if you like this RV lifestyle without necessarily having to purchase a rig flat out. And that's really where I think somebody who comes and stays in maybe a cabin of ours for the first time loves what a campground can provide. That type of person is more likely to become an RV customer than maybe the other way around. Somebody who has an RV likely is doing that because of the travel and the freedom and the sense of adventure that you get. They're likely locked into that rather than again somebody who just kind of is coming locally that maybe wants that cabin stay. So it's the education is a real deal. I constantly have to go out and help with those kind of things all the time, and it's we definitely there's a shortage of that. So anybody who wants to like make $1 million here, create an RV education company for all these new RVers and have people that go out and help with servicing these issues. Because I know if it's happening here, it's happening all across the country.
Oh, I could see you going, all right, give me the keys. Let me jump in there for you.
right?
When you talk about the RV lifestyle, uh, you had just mentioned, this RV lifestyle. So you've now been in outdoor hospitality, it looks like close to a decade. What have you seen change in terms of must-haves, non-negotiables for the today's camper or RVer versus when you first started?
So I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is the, addition of what we term the fourth utility hookup, and that being Wi-Fi, right? There's so many families, as I mentioned, and people who, because of the rise of remote work, are now choosing to live their life on the road and do homeschooling with their kids on the road. And all of those, needing to do all of those things, Wi-Fi internet connection has really become a major, major important factor, not only for streaming of movies and games, and obviously tailgating and camping have been synonymous for decades, but it's the professional work, right? I'm on the campground talking right now with doing this podcast, Jason, and us having great Wi-Fi allows us to do this. So to me, that has changed, and we've certainly seen the demographics skew younger. We've seen, and I personally have seen, the camper base has become much more diverse. It's sad to say, but it's no secret that camping has historically been kind of a white family activity, and now it has for decades. Where now we're seeing people of all races and creeds joining and doing camping. And I think that is a very good thing. It is something that, like I said, we're skewing younger. RVing was historically seen as kind of the retiree thing of, okay, we got done with our life here and we're going to now go travel the country. But that rise of remote work and being able to do homeschooling on the road, we're seeing many more families occupy our sites. And to your question earlier, Jason, those are the people that are spending a week or two instead of that weekend when you've got things like great internet connection, and lots of things for the kids to do. Mom and dad are much more likely to pay for those extra couple nights or stay another week because you've got everything that you need for them to be able to continue to do life and live life together before they kind of take that next step. So to me, the number one has been the change of demographics, and then sort of that rise of internet connectivity being essential.
Yeah, you said it earlier too. Like if the kids are happy, mom and dad will pay. I've got three little ones. I can attest to that. Like if you're making them happy, making them smile, they're content. They're not bored or whining or crying or fighting. It makes it all there's no cost. Like, okay, what do you want to do? But how do you for some people, camping, RVing has long been this like escape from the video, the Wi-Fi, like disconnect. I want to disconnect. But now it seems like you have to have that. Where is that fine line between unplugging, connecting, but then also having the creature comforts that you have at home?
So I think, for us, it's the activities that we are providing and doing as the park are meant to provide that sense of disconnection. I think a lot of times the way that I've always looked at it, Wi-Fi connectivity is important for mom and dad, where if they are the ones sort of enabling their kids to get off of the devices and get outside and explore the property, that's a really good thing. We like to go back to the basics with, just great arts and crafts time and doing classic activities like bingo, holding potlucks, times for families and kids just to be kids, right? It's amazing how you facilitate time of day for kids just to come in and like color some coloring sheets, or you set up a scavenger hunt for them to do around the campground. What might be, that might be a really boring activity if we were at home. But when you've got 10 kids that are all doing it together and they're going on this little adventure and doing that, you're turning something that was really simple and a really easy way to disconnect and get the kids outside, into a really cool experience. So I think it really, for us, the Wi-Fi connectivity gets mom or dad to come in and stay because of the necessities to do all the things that they need. And our hope is just that they are, forcing the kids, so to speak, to just be outdoors and do that. But I mean, you're right. It's a hard thing to struggle with. And, I've seen kids roll in with full Xbox and video game setups and all that. It's like, hold on a minute. Like we're not necessarily at home. But we just try and do our part and like I said, enable those spaces for kids to be kids.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like you're creating a ton of memories. As a GM of a place like this, what does a typical day look like for you? What's something that people may be surprised to learn that actually goes into running a place like this?
So, Jason, I think the operative word there is typical, and that's really like most days are atypical. I don't know that I can say I have a day that looks identical, and I don't know that I will. One of the things that I think a lot of times we see leaders of a business is somebody who might be just kind of sitting inside all day or stuck in spreadsheets and in the P&Ls and those kind of things. And certainly the financial performance and health of the business is paramount in my focus. But I am no stranger to going out and cleaning toilets, and I've had to, take stuff out of pools and all the kind of dirty menial tasks I mentioned, sewer hookup blowouts and all of that kind of stuff earlier. That is a facet of the job, and in some ways we are a little bit of a dirty outdoor rustic job. For goodness sake, we are outside, we're camping. You don't often have a lot of the same comforts that you do when you're at home, and all of those things go into running a campground. It's the things that aren't necessarily talked about much and don't get a lot of play on LinkedIn or social media platforms. But every GM that I know has had to clean bathrooms and had to clean throw up out of the pool and all of that kind of stuff. It's not fun, but we do it. And I'll also mention we're blessed to have good staff and good team members here. Campgrounds are unique because of the work camper model of employment, which I don't know, Jason, if this has been discussed much, but I'll cover it briefly here. A lot of people don't know, especially in the retiree stage of life, that there are people at hundreds of campgrounds across the country that both stay on the park and work, and you're essentially trading what might be your lot rent or your fee to camp in exchange for work being done on the property.
Wow.
And there are a lot of great people that I have crossed paths and share stories with, people that have been on the road and doing this whole work camping thing for decades. And it is a really unique facet to the business. Where else do you get to kind of travel the country, stay at great places for free, do a little bit of work and maybe those older years of life to just kind of keep you active and keep you moving. And you're able to really travel and do this every 6 months or a year. So to me, that is something
That's wild.
that is a real blessing for me, is to have folks like that on my team.
So I did not know that. That is actually complete news to me. Makes total sense. And I know that some of them may come and go, some may stay a while. Doesn't have to be related just to folks that are working there, but you're often bringing people together in meaningful ways. They're sharing, moments and activities together. What are some of the most powerful moments of connection you've witnessed between guests or between guests and nature?
Man, this is a good one. One that I love. I'm kind of thinking back to, we have a family that's camping with us now that has a couple of kiddos that are younger, right? They're 9 years and under, and the way that they interact with some of the other kiddos that come to the property and make friends and pen pals. I mean, these kids are writing letters to each other back and forth on the road, and to be able to see just the friendships that are made along the way, and to see that we've been successful in building that type of community here, where the kids can be comfortable, where they can just go outside and be kids, and most importantly, where the parents trust us that we've created that safe environment for their kids to be outdoors, where in some ways you don't have to worry about what might be a very complicated and messy world outside. A lot of times, when you pull into the campground, you were escaping life a little bit. And so for me, seeing those, and I get to hear from her, every few weeks about, things that some of these other kids that they're meeting are doing. And, I just love that those relationships have been developed, and who knows, they could be, lifelong friends because of experiences and memories that were created at our property. And to me, those are, when you can impact a kid like that. I go back to, as I mentioned, my mom's been a kindergarten teacher for, going on 30 years now. When you can facilitate that, and it's sort of how I look at, we're doing a good job of educating and helping these kids grow. These could be lifelong friendships that are made, and those are some of the most touching moments for me, because we can get so caught up in those P&Ls and the stuff that I have to do as a GM, but to see those moments happen, it gives me energy for sure.
That was one of my next three questions. One of them was going to be, aside from the P&L, how do you measure success? Like at the end of the camp season and you're shutting things down and you just say to the team, like, hey, that was pretty successful. It sounds like some of the memories that you've witnessed or that you've helped facilitate and create, but is there anything else you'd lump into there?
I think that honestly that to me is the most important after the financial metric. And we often look at ourselves as being memory makers, right? And I'm constantly trying to empower our team and our staff to do that. And I think when you're in the hospitality industry, that kind of stuff comes natural. You are often looking for how you can create those moments and what are the things that could be done that don't cost any additional money to the campground, but help facilitate that experience for the guests. And I think the more in which we empower our team to do that and to go and I'm constantly asking people, how many people have you been in contact with today, right? How many people have you had conversations with, and what are we doing to impact the environment and that sense of community on the property? Those are how you get those daily wins, even when you might be going through a really rough patch, or, we all know the times of year that are very busy and stressful and strenuous. But I think those are really those important moments that keep you and your team focused on what you're doing and how it actually is having an impact.
Yeah, incredible. It almost we've had GMs on the program before, people that work on site. They talk about making memories and things like that. But for you, given the nature of where you are, this place, this setting, what do you think managing a campground has taught you about leadership or patience or working with nature, lessons that you might not otherwise have in another setting? Aside from all the puke and poop, you're,
Right, right.
needing to facilitate.
So, Jason, as we kind of went through my background, we obviously have touched. I've had a chance to be at a lot of different places and travel and experience different campgrounds with different companies. And I think if I could kind of, go back in time a little bit, and as you said, kind of look at, what have I learned through that journey? Being more patient is something that certainly comes to mind. I obviously started in this industry fairly young, right? At 16, I'm still in my mid 20s now. So versus some of the people that, you've had on the program, I certainly am at, I would say, the beginning of my career, and hopefully ascending into the peak of my career here. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, especially somebody who, starting that young, not knowing very much and not really having worked in a corporate setting. You've got to learn about communication, working with guests, working with, we've got investors and stakeholders here and folks that you've got to answer to and deliver. That was a totally new thing for me, 5 years ago, right? I'd never been in a situation where an investor came in and you had to, defend your financial performance of the property and what you were spending money on. That was a very unique experience. So I would say that patience of not wanting to kind of get ahead of myself, being very comfortable with just where I'm at in this kind of stage of life and the journey that I'm on now, and being more focused on, communication and being more present in the work that we do day to day. Those are lessons that I say along the way, and having stopped at many places, those are common themes that I'm still reminding myself of, that I still along the journey recognize that those are areas of opportunity and things that can only get better along the way.
Love it. Love it. We've never asked this question because we've never had an outdoor hospitality expert on, but imagine you could, with unlimited resources and a fresh plot of land, designed the ideal campground RV, campground of tomorrow, future facing, what would it have in it? What are some of the things that you would build from the ground up, money being no object?
This is a really interesting question, and in fact, I've tried to think about this, and I think that one, the answers could certainly vary, but I'm going to try and give at least some things that I've thought about that even here, right? If I could go back in time with the construction at this current RV resort, what would be things that I would change? I think RV parks being mostly built in the 1960s and 1970s, there was a lot of focus on trying to pack as many units as possible into a given plot of land or the selection, right? You were trying to get as many RVs into your campground as possible, maybe as many, units fitting and putting as many amenities in a given spot. I think today that script has flipped a little bit where people are kind of wanting more of that unique experience and designing both sites and units that naturally work on the property, right? So where you're maximizing the view sheds that you have, you're not trying to, necessarily see your neighbor's sewer hookup right in view of where you're trying to sit and have dinner, right? I think all of those kinds of things are much more important than historically they've been in years past. And the uniqueness of the property and really trying to maximize, like, where is that plot of land? What natural features and feature sets do you have? Are you on a body of water? Do you have a lot of acreage? We're blessed here at our property. We've got 100 acres of land. The campground sits on just the first portion of it. We've got trails and things that go back through it that, I wish that our sites were a little bit more spread out to maximize a lot of those great natural features that we have. So I think that is most important. I think
that
focusing.
Is super interesting. I didn't realize that. So when I went, I went street view, I went satellite view. I see it. I didn't realize the land behind it was yours and accessible to your guests.
It is, and we've got trails that are cut out in there. People take golf carts and bikes and hike back there.
Is the water yours too?
It is.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's a man-made lake. In fact, we're about to undergo in the next several years a bit of an expansion where our lake will essentially triple in size. We'll add additional units back through the property. We have plans at this stage, at least, to add yurts and tree houses and cool, lodging units and things like that, trying to capitalize on this kind of vision, right? When you, as you said, look at the aerial view of the park, we did what every other park did, right? Your sites are all in a row. It looks and mirrors like a traditional RV park would. But I think this next phase is really, just utilizing the property better and utilizing nature better. We've got deer, bald eagles nests, butterflies, thousands of fireflies, right? We're in a really beautiful natural setting. We have wild flowers everywhere. I mean, we have a lot of great natural beauty that I think, people closer to my age and younger are, those are the kind of things that we care about, getting outdoors and having that disconnection moment and not feeling like, like it's a hotel room, right? Where it's just room after room after room together. I think a lot of people want that state park camping feel where you're out in nature and seeing it, but also wanting a really high-end activity and amenities experience with great bathrooms and that pool that they can go to. We're seeing wellness and spa amenities being kind of a newer evolution and something we're looking at more closely, right? Doing things like poolside yoga and having, these think of a corporate wellness retreat or something. How can we bring that into the camping world and kind of make it more sophisticated? Those are all things that I think lend themselves well to that next generation of travelers. And those would be the kind of things that we would focus on.
That is so awesome. I love the treehouse idea. My kids and
I was going to say, what kid wouldn't want to sleep in one of those?
So I literally just brought this up because this is what we did in the summertime. My kids we wanted to go out. I didn't want to drive too far. Within maybe 45 minutes, we found this spot. Check this out. Magical treehouse with slide, hot tub, and hammock. I think it was like 140 a night. So amazing. The kids are in the hot tub, and then, at night being able to have s'mores and come down this slide. They went down it, I didn't, but just, and it was a tent pretty much. I mean, it was like a big tent, but the marketing of like this magical treehouse. And ironically, there's a main house. This was just a little alcove in their backyard that from that deck looked out into just a big open field. There was nothing unique. It wasn't near water. It wasn't near a national park, but it was such a unique, maybe half acre of land that was situated that you felt like you were the only people there.
And I think more people are wanting that. And, Jason, I saw on there, right, the hot tub, that kind of spa and wellness, as I just talked about. Like, you've got kind of your adults corner. The slide was great for the kids. Like, that's the kind of thing that that you're being sold more on the experience more than anything else. And I think so much of what younger people today are spending their money on are experiences. We're being a little bit more minimalist in the things that we're collecting, and maybe people aren't necessarily buying houses as much today. People are more ready and willing to hop in an RV or do that van life, travel and hit the road and go explore some cool places. And I think that experiential side of outdoor hospitality is only going to continue to grow and get more popular as people look and crave for all of those kind of new experiences.
Absolutely. This has been great, Alex. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Alex Burkett, General Manager at Grayson Capital Group. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening. If you found this episode insightful, have any questions, like or comment, and if you want to stay informed, make sure to subscribe and we'll let you know about new episodes. Thanks so much and have a great day.
Thanks, Jason.